Welcome back to the channel and my December 2025 Mpumalanga series. This is the follow-up video to visiting the Panorama Route and is of the first trip I made on 5 December 2025. This trip was my first chance at bouldering since September, when I had went to Limpopo for a family engagement. My October and November were taken up by work and moving around Pretoria and Johannesburg. It was a time of long working hours, high workloads and stress as we were trying to get as much done before the December 2025 holidays closure. I remember one Saturday morning I had to ask my manager to excuse me for 2 hours to go out for groceries and to do my laundry, as I had not had a chance during the week and we were working that weekend. So I was really looking forward to seeing my family again and the rural landscape. November had brought back the rains and the landscape had turned green again. I started planning going on this trip at the end of November, as soon as the work pace dropped and everyone at the office was cooling down and waiting for the office closure party. I wanted to go home in Mankweng for a couple of days and return to Joburg for the office closure event. On the way, I wanted to pass by God's Window and 3 Rondavels on the Mpumalanga escarpment before reaching home by sunset. The last time I had visited the escarpment was more than 20 years ago with my parents. You know, I sometimes mock people for doing what everyone else is doing, like traveling, living in cookie cutter suburban homes, and here I was about to embark on the same endeavor. I reckon that I will be able to do the 770 kilometer trip in the 13-hour window period of sunlight offered by the summer season. For this trip, I am using my 2013 Honda CBR 250R with 23 horsepower. This bike reaches highway speeds and has a decent 3.3 liters per 100 kilometer fuel consumption. I want to see how well this bike can fare on long trips and whether I will be comfortable sitting on it for hours on end traveling. I would like to do some touring in the near future. I would like to do the 1600 kilometer or 1000 mile Iron Badge challenge, visiting the Free State to see the snow sometime in the winter, and then also going somewhere on the west coast, maybe Klein Sea or Port Nolloth, and visiting the Atlantic Ocean. So this trip would also be a test of the CBR 250R's touring abilities. The last long trip I did was in November 2023 to the Palale with my CBR 125, and I did not enjoy that very much. The 125cc's major con is that it is slow, and it does make up for this by being very fuel efficient. I have seen fuel economy above 40 kilometers per liter. The distance was approximately 630 kilometers and it took me about 10 hours, which was painful. I reckon that I could do the same distance in under 6 hours with the 250. That's just how much more confidence I have in this bike. My plan was to leave Centurion very in the morning and head east to Barberton, which is 370 kilometers away. I figured that I could make it in 4 hours at an average speed of 100 kilometers per hour, as I would be avoiding tolls on the way to minimize costs. From Barberton, God's Window and 3 Rondavels are only 197 kilometers and I could make it in about 4 hours, considering that the road from Nelspuit is twisty and I would spend roughly 20 minutes at each viewpoint. From then on, home was just another 215 kilometers, and after Tzaneen I would be passing through familiar territory, so I would not worry about the time from then on. But boy, was I so wrong. My first mistake was leaving Centurion late, just after 9 a.m., which immediately called into question the success of the trip. My traveling time estimates, which were very ambitious and bordered on fantastical, was that I would be at the Three Roundabout site after 9 hours of leaving Centurion, in this case 6 p.m. In retrospect, I realized that I had not taken into account especially road fatigue and the time I would need to recover, as you will find out later. This was the first reason this trip did not succeed. The main reason for my flawed time estimates was that I am used to spending 8 hours on my bicycle, taking 50-kilometer trips and so on, that I thought spending similar times on a motorcycle would be much easier, since I do not have to physically exert myself with pedaling and so on. This is the main thing that I corrected for in my second trip that I made on 15 December when I left much earlier in the morning. The first part of the trip went through very easily. I got off the N4 to join the R104 East at the M10 Mamelodi off-ramp, which is the last turn-off that you can make without having to pay toll fees, and to also avoid the Diamond Hill Plaza. The R104 opens up just after Donkerhoek and can make for some spirited riding. The road is straight, is in a good condition, and critically is not busy. The speed limit is 100 kilometers per hour, and you can do a little bit extra at your own discretion. I have ridden here previously in June 2024, right after buying this bike. I did ease off the gas when I had a view of Bronkhorstspruit and prepared to go into town. There was an incident that unfolded involving this Toyota Land Cruiser 200 VXR behind me. Side note, I find it amazing that these cars are going for well over R1 million, even with over 100,000 kilometer mileage. See this little Chevy Aveo LS? The Chevy got impatient at an intersection and decided to skip the queue, as you can see in my left mirror. It then cut in front of the Toyota, who started hooting in protestation. Now, I'm watching the full event in my mirrors, and I can see that the Toyota driver is not taking it well. And me, not wanting to be caught in any crossfire, decided to pull over into the street parking. Watch how the Toyota blows past the stop sign intersection and attempts to cut off the Chevy in retaliation. It just happened that the Chevy turned right and nothing came out of the situation. I think this Toyota driver really needed to do better. They could have caused a crash with another car that was crossing the intersection, or was a motorcycle, all for the sake of getting some petty revenge. I'm also not trying to let the Chevy off. Cutting in front of the Toyota was wrong. The Toyota should have responded to the situation better. I have seen lives ruined because people could not hold their temper and walk away from a provocative situation. One of my churchmates from 12 years ago was recently killed at just 29 years old, at a soccer match over an argument with a taxi driver over the placement of muti near the opposing team's goal post. The taxi driver is now on trial for murder. I got back on the N4 after Bronkhorstspruit as there were no toll fees up to Wheatbank. I think it's a shame that on a sunny, clear, blue sky days such as this, that we can only speed up to the 120 km per hour speed limit on a dual carriage freeway. The current speed limit has been in place since 1971, when cars were much more slower and not so safe. I think South Africa should move to unrestrict the speed limit on sections of some freeways during the day, especially away from civilization. If you are wondering how I managed to get my route directions without a phone mount on my bike, I start by looking up the trip on Google Maps, including Street View, and try to memorize the street names and visual cues. Like in this instance, when I reached Wheatbank, I needed to off-ramp at the R38 Bothasneck Drive to avoid the Middleback toll plaza fee. From Google Maps Street View, I noted that there is a giant overhead sign indicating the turn 500 meters before, and there were also these huge power lines that I needed to watch out for, which served as my visual cues to ensure that I took the correct turn. From then on, I just needed to follow the route to Middleback. Talking of which, just after Wheatbank, the R555 changes to a single carriageway, which makes overtaking very difficult. Well, not always. The provincial government should consider extending the road to a dual carriageway for both directions and show Sandra the middle finger for the overpriced tolls. Up to so far, I had made some good time in reaching the outskirts of Middleback and was feeling pretty good about it. Just before the Midwit Traffic Control Center, I stopped to take a short leg stretch and to check my phone. The time was 10:37. This was the last time I saw the rear seat on my bike. The second mistake I made was not checking that I had fastened my rear seat properly. I think I lost it somewhere on the N11. It could have been here when I made this overtake. I don't know why it got lost. Just outside Hendrina, I realized that my speedometer was acting up and suspected the positive terminal. You can see here the speedometer giving erratic readings. I had to stop and fix it. Oh God! This is when I realized that I had lost my rear seat. I knew right away that I would not go back and try to retrieve it. The seat could have been crushed by a lorry by now if it had fallen into the road. Anyway, I had no idea where it might have fallen. The last thing I wanted to do was to go on a wild goose chase, which would compromise me not reaching the escarpment. I still believe in my mind at this time that I would make it to both God's window and the 3 roundabouts viewpoint. The third mistake was not fixing the faulty battery terminal before the trip. Before this trip, this bike had two niggling maintenance issues. The drive chain and sprockets needed replacing, and the positive cable loosening from the battery terminal, which was not be a proper fit. For the time being, I could ignore the chain and sprockets. I had learned to live with the positive faulty battery terminal by inspecting and adjusting it regularly, so I did not expect issues on this trip. I can only guess that driving on Mpumalanga's bumpy roads must have played a role in loosening it. Irrespective of this was a major fail on myself for relying on temporary fixes, which would be the major undoing of this trip. With the battery terminal temporarily fixed and held with duct tape and a lot of dreams and hopes, it was time to move on. So it turns out that I had stopped just 2 kilometers outside of Hendrina, and I quickly made into town. My bike's warning light for reserve fuel had started flashing before leaving the freeway in Witbank, and I had not been riding it at particularly low RPMs to try and conserve fuel. The fourth mistake I made was not refueling in Hendrina. I did think about stopping at the Shell garage and refueling even for a liter, and the deciding factor was the garage not being on my left hand side. There is so much time lost in waiting to cross the road and returning to the direction you are traveling in. In routing, I specifically avoid filling in garages that are in the opposite direction that I am traveling in. This is never a problem as there are more than enough filling stations in routing. Out here in the bushes, filling stations are limited, and quirky behavior like mine will get punished. The next town on the road was Carolina, which is 42 kilometers away. The R38 between Hendrina and Carolina is a speeding haven. The road surface is pretty good. There are no fixed speeding cameras. There are uninterrupted views of many kilometers of the road ahead, and cops, if there are any, can be easily spotted from afar. I think the road is perfect for top speed run attempts with minimal risk of getting speeding tickets. I am going to consider coming back here with a faster bike in the future. Just on the outskirts of Carolina, disaster struck. The bike started to randomly sputter. I was holding the throttle wide open and received no response and decided to pull over to have a look. I had an inkling of what was going on. Opening and looking inside the tank was just to confirm the fact. I was running out of fuel pressure fast and it was empty. Anything in here? Oh my god. I think I'm not. Yes. A check on my phone showed that the next station was graciously only 2 kilometers away. Since the tank was empty, the only fuel that remained was inside the pump and in the fuel line, so I had to try and baby it. I did manage to get it moving for another 1 kilometer at low revs and speed until it just couldn't do no more just after the bridge. It died. I had no other choice but to push for the remaining distance. While refueling, there was another event that happened.
Good, good.
Where's the hospital here?
Hospital?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just passing through.
Hello.
Hours.
Don't you know where's the hospital here?
No, I don't know.
Please, my wife is in labor.
Oh, shit, sorry. You go straight to sleep.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, you're straight.
It's amazing to know that I am one of the last people the father of this baby spoke to before they were born. After refueling with 150, which I was sure would get me to Barberton, I was a little worried that I might have damaged the fuel pump with running the tank empty. Luckily, the bike started right up and I gave it a minute for the fuel to circulate around before leaving. Looking back at this, I got extremely lucky. Pushing the bike for the remaining 1 kilometer only took me about 15 minutes, with the rest in between. Running out of fuel should only occur in exceptional circumstances and not be a regular thing. I have heard of people damaging their fuel pumps after running their tanks empty. The time was just after 12:30 when I left the station in Carolina. My confidence was back with half a tank of petrol. Once out of town, the road opened up and I was back on the gas, racing towards Barberton, or so I thought. Barely 20 minutes out of Carolina, my Achilles heel electrical terminal struck again. This time I noted that when completing an overtake and returning to the left lane, the left-hand signal indicator light on the instrument cluster was not flashing. The indicator bulb itself was blinking, fortunately. This obviously had to do something with the faulty battery terminal and required immediate attention. I had to pull over and have a look. Yeah, this was not part of the plan. Stopping in the middle of nowhere and attempting a repair. I was now, as the great Muzi Sambo would say, a bush mechanic. The dream was truly over now. There was no way I could make it to God's window and the drill rendezvous site before they closed at 5 p.m. After 20 minutes of fiddling with the terminal, I still could not make the left-hand signal indicator light on the instrument cluster light up consistently when pressing the indicator. Everything else worked fine. The terminal was still held up by the duct tape as I had done in Hendrina. I had to make the call to just leave it alone and to try to continue with the trip. From what I could tell, the indicator light on the cluster was either failing or not receiving sufficient power. Either way, this did not affect the operability of the bike. I was also starting to get concerned about getting attacked by some man-eating beast. There's that sinking feeling people get when they lose some faith in a vehicle on whether it can complete a trip. They stop enjoying the journey and constantly worrying about when the breakdown will occur as it starts to feel inevitable. Well, I was not having that feeling. If the duct tape was managing to hold the terminal to the cable, that meant that I would not have any issues that affected my operation of the bike for the time being. I could manage being without the indicator on the instrument cluster. The last mountain pass I did was Bronkhorstspruit in early August, so I was looking forward to Bothasneck. I am fascinated by mountains and how they have been here for tens of millions of years. For a human with a lifespan of roughly 70 years, that is very hard to comprehend. Riding in from the west, the road slowly makes its way up the mountain. At the top, it plateaus and passes through commercial forestry. The mountain peaks in the distance add to the scenery. The road is not that challenging in terms of technicality in that sharp bends are rare. It does, however, have a lot of turns and some blind corners that you need to watch out for. I have uploaded the full unedited footage of the mountain pass on my channel to look at it. Soon after the mountain pass, the road descends and straightens thereafter to head to Barberton. Just outside the tower is a pair of fixed speeding cameras that one needs to look out for. This R40 road I am on goes all the way to the Swaziland border, which gives me an idea for a future road trip and fantasy of eloping with the Swati princess. It was 2:30 in the afternoon when I got to Barberton at the Astron Energy filling station. I refilled with 200 rands, which filled my tank right back up. I did not realize how tired and hungry I was until I got to Barberton. From the time of arriving here, I had filled the bike and taken a 15-minute rest. After fiddling through my phone and noting that Barberton had some auto parts store, I decided to leave the bike at the filling station and walked into town to try and see what I could find to fix my battery terminal issues. Unfortunately for me, all of the battery terminals I found were for motor vehicles and were too big for a motorcycle. On the way back to the filling station, I had passed a ShopRite. If y'all don't know, ShopRite is the goat of cheap fast food carbs. I managed to get a small pie for 11 rand and fat cakes for 12 rand 50. This turned into a 1-hour lunch and rest break, as I had not eaten since yesterday. I was now considering whether to continue with pushing to get home or consider getting a place to stay for the night and continue with the trip in the morning. Still not sure on what to do, I decided to think it through on the road to Nelspuit. It was now 4:30 in the afternoon when I left. If you have heard anything about the Barberton area, then you most certainly know about the mountains around here. There is the famous Hilltop pass here with some wicked bends. Now, regarding on whether to stay over or proceed home in the darkness, my most concern was on the incremental cost. There were some costs, such as the fuel to reach Mankweng, that I will incur irrespective of whichever decision I make. However, if I decided to stay over for the night, I would incur accommodation and a takeaway dinner meal, which would set me back roughly another 600 rand. My lizard brain was not too sold on the idea of staying over. 600 rands was roughly 28.6 liters of unleaded 95 that I could use to travel around 850 kilometers. I still needed to return to Gauteng in the coming week, which alone was 300 kilometers. It was now final. I decided that I would continue to Mankweng. The distance from Barberton is round about 40 something kilometers, so I was able to make it around 30 minutes and got to Nelspuit just after 5 p.m. Getting out of Nelspuit proved tricky. From Ilanga Mall, I was supposed to take the R104 to meet the R37 road, which would lead me to Sabie and Graskop. Instead, I proceeded west on Hermansberg Road and ended up near the airport. Had to stop and look up the directions on my phone, then circle back to the mall and take the R104. Then I was able to meet the R37. All in all, this lost me a good 15 minutes. As I exited Nelspuit and headed to Sabie, I considered it strange that the sun was going down despite the time being half past 5 in the afternoon. In Centurion, the summer sun usually sets after 7 p.m. That's when I realized that the mountain range to the west of Nelspuit was blocking the sun and condemning the town to an early evening. The ride to Sabie was very scenic and did not disappoint. Long sweeping curves, mountain peaks in the distance, commercial forestry plantations. It reminded me very much of the Johannesburg, Bronkhorstspruit and Georges Valley area. Coming into Graskop, I missed the left turn to continue on the R532 road and proceeded straight on Richardson Avenue. I soon pulled over into Garrick Street to check my phone for directions. I also had to call my brother to let him know where I was, since I had left Gauteng without letting anyone know. My family in Limpopo was not even aware that I was coming to visit. It was 6:35 when I ended the call and got back on the road. I noted that both Sabie and Graskop share a peculiar characteristic. Their main streets are well maintained, however, the side streets are in really bad condition. The only connecting dots are that both towns are managed by the same municipality. Coming out of Graskop, this is the R534 road which leads to God's Window. How different things would have been had it not been for the gremlins I encountered today. This is when I passed by the Gold Rush Bouldering and had to slow down to admire the sight. The time was now heading to 7 and darkness was fast setting in. I'm not sure what happened with my camera. After coming out of Nelspuit, it just faced downwards, hence the footage is mostly of myself. I only realized this when going through the footage. This is when I passed the Total Energy garage right after the 3 roundabout entrance. For a moment, I considered going in and refueling, considering what happened earlier in Carolina. This time, my fuel gauge was still showing a healthy amount, and I was assured that I had enough to get to the filling station on the other side of the Strijdom tunnel. The next section which followed is a wilderness area where the provincial borders are located. I have to say, driving on the Mpumalanga side at night was challenging, as the road lanes have not been marked, so I could not make out the direction where the road was heading in the distance, which required that I take it slow. The road itself is in a good condition. The road on the Limpopo side is much better, as it has reflector lane markers which tell you exactly where the road is heading to. It was also this time that I started to think about my battery terminal issue and worried about it returning. Luckily, my guardian angel was working overtime and the issue did not arise for the rest of the trip. Just after crossing the provincial border into Limpopo, I received a saving grace in the form of another car which was moving faster behind me. Now, my bike's headlight is a halogen, so it does not see that well into the distance. Hence, I needed the assistance of the reflector lane markers. So I let the car overtake me and tried to stay close to them so that they would light up the way. This allowed me to go a little bit faster than previous. Soon after that, the car had to get off the road. I have to presume that they were close to their destination, and I was back to being alone. For that brief time that I was able to follow them, I did not feel so alone in the bushes. Leading up to the Strijdom tunnel, I got caught up in a slow-moving train of cars, and given the darkness and curvy nature of the road, I was happy to follow along and be surrounded by the company. On the other side of the tunnel, as we were descending, there was this giant moon that seemed to welcome me back to familiar territory. There are villages around the road, and it is common to encounter livestock, so everyone in the car train was just taking it easy. Once down the mountain and the road straight, it was time to say goodbye to my friends and pull away. Even the left indicator light on the instrument cluster was working as expected. It was just before 8 p.m. that I pulled into the Total Tunnel Plaza and needed to refuel.
Hey, guy. Okay. Acha. Pala 295.
The trip was not done. Home was still another 157 kilometers away. But most important is that I was near Zanin. I was confident enough to ride through Bronkhorstspruit at any time. When I look through the things that I went through on this trip, I have to say that luck was extremely on my side. It was just plain stupid for me to ride through all that darkness, and I should have stayed over for the night in either Nelspuit, Sabie or Graskop. Thankfully, the roads did not have potholes, apart from the Strijdom tunnel section where I was taking it easy and following the other cars. I also did not have any more issues with my faulty battery electric terminal. I did eventually get it permanently fixed the next day with some parts that I found home. I also did not run out of petrol in the middle of nowhere in Mpumalanga. I mean, suppose that I had run out 20 kilometers from Carolina, I would have lost a lot more time waiting for a roadside assistant. Apart from the battery terminal issue, this bike also proved reliable and that it could maintain top performance consistently, even at 23 horsepower. Most important for this reconnaissance is that this bike, provided that I fix things on time, is capable for doing long tours. So I am very grateful. To close out, I will quickly run over the financial cost of the trip. So with fuel, I started with 150 rand in Centurion the previous day, and in Carolina I refueled it 150 again, and then in Barberton there was 200, and at the tunnel station there was another 200. So total fuel cost was 700 rand, And then food in Barberton, I bought a pie for 11 rand and also fat cakes for 12 rand 50. So in total, that brought the cost of this trip to 723 rand and 50 cents. Not bad for 770 kilometers. So that, thanks for watching and cheers.